never made the bracha on bread, on a piece of bread that wasn't his own, because he insisted on only eating that which was his own. He wouldn't eat from somebody else, as we said before. And even when he was a child, once he matured and was able to understand his own intelligence, he wouldn't even enjoy the meal from his father. He wouldn't even take the food from his father that his father was serving him. He would insist on preparing his own food, paying for his own food, never taking a gift from anybody else. Okay, so that was a nice diversion from details of the laws of Shechita, getting into the topic of how Hashem protects the tzaddikim and the animals of the tzaddikim from eating non-kosher. And now we go back to some more laws of Shechita. So a very important point. There's something called a treifa. Treifa is an animal that had a knife slide across its two pipes. But once we start examining the animal, we find the animal was anyway blemished with a blemish that was going to cause it to die within 12 months. There was a hole within the lungs. There was, a hole in the skull. There was a problem there. Anyway, it was going to die out within 12 months. So a treifa is not kosher. One of the things that makes an animal a treifa would be a hole in either of the two pipes. Let's say you slaughter the animal, and then you discover when you are, skinning it and cleaning it up, that further up in the pipe or further lower on the pipe, there was already a hole there in the pipe, in the trachea, in the esophagus. That already makes it a treifa, and it's not kosher. About a third of the animals that are slaughtered are treifas. So the slaughterhouses, they always have to have arrangements with non-Jews to sell them the treifas, because
you can
it's a big loss. You can benefit from
What's the other one called?
Nevela. Nevela is an animal that was, let's say, shot or bludgeoned to death. It wasn't killed through shchitas. Amar Zev Amar Shmuel. Zev taught in the name of Shmuel. Libein sakin. What happens if our shochet takes a knife and he heats it up to the point of libun? Now, libun is the amount of heat needed to purge metal from non-kosher absorbed tastes. It means to heat it up to the point where the metal turns red. So he took this metal knife and he heated it up so much that it turned red. It was red hot. And when it was red hot, shachatva, he slaughters with it.
Ooh.
So the point is, what's the question? Maybe when you have a red hot knife, so that knife is burning and scalding the neck of the animal. So it's making the animal a treifa. So the animal was a treifa before it got slaughtered.
Yeah.
So the chiddush of Rabbi Zev is it's kshera. No, this shechita is kosher. Why don't we say what Baruch is thinking, that the red hot knife burned parts of the pipe, and by burning the pipe is now a treifa. So the answer is shechiduda kodem l'libuna. When you have a knife, the sharpness of the knife severs the pipe before the heat of the knife is going to burn the pipe. Asks the Gemara, 1 second. What about the sides of the pipes? The sides of the pipes, they are not touched by the blade, by the sharpness of the knife, and they should have become treifa because of the heat of this knife. The Gemara answers that's not the way slaughtering works. When you slaughter correctly, so while slaughtering, it's the blade of the knife that touches the pipe, and right when it touches the pipe expands. When you open up the cut, so the two sides now expand with a big gap between them. So the blade, the sides of the blade, and the sides of the blade are not touching the pipe at all. Since they're not touching the pipes at all, there is no burn here that would make it a treifa before there was a severing before there was a cutting.
Anyhow, gushing out the blood, it makes a knife cool, I guess.
Point. It's also
Right?
true. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the interesting point here, that when using a red hot knife to cut the pipes of an animal, that will still be a kosher shechita.
Why they would heat up the knife, Rabbi? Make it kosher la
I
Pesach?
don't know. He heated it up for whatever reason. He heated it up. All right. So we're now going to go from here into the topic of tsaras. So a little bit of an introduction to tsaras. The Torah says that if a person has on his skin tsaras called shchin. So shchin means he has some type of a heat wound. Maybe he was hit by a stone, black and blue mark, or he touches something which is hot but not hot by fire. And then when that heat wound heals, a lesion appears. That's called a tsaras of shchin. But then there's also a tsaras called michva. Tsaras of michva is a lesion that appeared after he had gotten burned with something that was hot by fire. So there are similar laws. Tsaras of shchin, which is a lesion after a wound, or tsaras of michva, a lesion after a burn. In both of them, if there's white hairs inside the lesion, he becomes a full-fledged mitzora muchla. But if they don't have white hairs, then the person is muzgar, he's put aside for a week, and after that week he's examined a second time, and then if the lesion spread, that's called pisyon, he becomes a mitzora even if he doesn't have white hairs. Or if there are now white hairs in it, he becomes a mitzora.
Doesn't the Chulin have to declare it?
Yeah, so the Kohen first declared it. Right? But if neither of these things happened, he becomes toh. The Gemara is going to say now that there is a difference between a mitzora of michva, a mitzora who has a lesion from a wound of heat, or a mitzora of shchin, a mitzora who has a lesion from a wound that wasn't based on fire heat, that if each lesion is only half of a gris, it wouldn't combine to make him tummy. So that's the point here.
So,
If you have a person who, let's say, got a burn in fire, and then when the burn healed, there is a lesion, a michva lesion of half a gris, and then someone else hits him, and he gets a black and blue mark. And when the black and blue mark heals, there's another lesion left there, also of half a gris. We don't say that he has a gris of tsaras to have to go into muzgar. He doesn't go into muzgar, he is still tall.
so the white hair is a sign of getting
Tumah.
better.
Then he's
Better.
coming. No, getting worse.
It's getting worse, the white.
Okay, so again, we're dealing with this case of a heated piece of metal. So we had a chiddush. We said that a heated knife that is used to slaughter an animal, the animal is kosher. So now we're going to move from there to the issues of tsaras. They had a question in the yeshiva. Libein shpud. Let's say a person heats a metal rod, a metal spit that's used to roast chickens on it. Yehika bo. And then with this heated metal rod, he hits a person and gives a person a black and blue mark. And when the black and blue mark heals, that person is left with lesions of tsaras. Mishum shchin nidon. Are we going to say that lesion is classified as shchin tsaras? Or mishum michva nidon? Are we going to say that lesion is classified as michva tsaras, the lesion that comes after the healing of a burn? Now, l'may nafkamina, what difference would there be whether we classify it as shchin or classify it as mikvah? Answer the Gemara. Look at it, Tanya. The difference will be as we learned in a brisa. Both shchin and mikvah, both a lesion after a wound or a lesion after a burn, mitamin b'shavua echad. So they become tamei with a single week of Hesker. That if after the single week they haven't spread and they don't have white hairs, then they are tahor. Now, what would make them tamei? Bishnei simanim. What would make them tamei would be either of these two signs. B'seir lavan, white hair growing in the lesion makes them tamei, or pisyon, or if they spread, they become tamei. Why does the Torah have a whole section talking about mikvah, lesions after burns, and another section about shchin, lesions after wounds? That they don't combine with each other. If you only have half a gris of a mikvah lesion and half a gris of a shchin lesion, it's not considered that you have a full gris, and he is tahor. Britannia, look in a brisa. What is a shchin lesion? What is a mikvah lesion? Laka ba'etz or be'even. If a person is wounded with a piece of wood or with a stone, he gets a black and blue mark, and then when it heals, there's a lesion left. Or begefes, he put his hand in he put his hand in ground olive pulp, which has a certain amount of heat. Or he got wounded b'chamei tveria. His hand got a burn, but not a burn from fire. It got a burn from the waters of the hot springs of Tveria, which are hot, but they're not hot from fire. Or b'chol davar shelo b'mach masor. He got a burn from anything which is not based on flames. Lasuye avar meikaro, for example, let's say he got a burn from lead that's being mined, it's being taken out of the ground right now. So in all of these lesions, shchin, these lesions are classified as shchin. Shchin is a lesion after a black and blue mark, a lesion after a burn, but a burn is not something that was heated by fire. Zeu mikvah, what is classified as a mikvah lesion, mikvah begacheles. Let's say he was burned with a coal, burning coal, a coal is fire, or remets, or hot ash, or sid roseach, or boiling concrete that again was burned in fire, or gifsis roseach, another type of concrete, or any type of burn that comes from fire, to include hot water that is heated by fire, zohi mikvah. So those types of lesions are called mikvah lesions. V'tanu l'din abraisa. Shchin u'michvah. Let's say the person has a shchin lesion as well as a mikvah lesion in the same spot. Im shchin kodem la mikvah. If the shchin lesion was there first and then the mikvah lesion, bitel mikvah shchin. The mikvah has annulled the shchin. The mikvah kodemas the shchin. If the mikvah came before the shchin, bitel shchin es mikvah. The shchin annulled the mikvah. And the point being that the two things don't combine. In other words, if you have half a gris of shchin and half a gris of mikvah, he's not tameh. Only if he has a full gris of shchin or mikvah would he become tameh. So now the question is like this: when you have a spit that was heated, and then he hits somebody with this heated spit, and then there is a lesion that grows. So here, what's the case? We're going to have a bechatzi gris shchin meikara. This person already had half a gris of a shchin lesion. Food, then he heated up a spit, a metal rod. He hit this friend who had half a gris. And now there's another half a gris that grows up. And now the question is, how do we classify a person who gets hit with a heated metal rod? Do we say chavata kadin? Like with a knife, the first thing is the blow. So really, first there was the blow. And therefore, after the blow, Asi Havla, then came the heat, Umavatale Lachavta, and that annuls the blow. So now it's considered a mikvah. Havale Shchin and mikvah. So now he's a situation of half a gris Shchin, half a gris mikvah, below mitzdarfen. They don't combine, and therefore he's tar. Oh, different. Maybe we say, unlike what we said with shkita, maybe we say the other way. We say havla cutting. When there's a metal rod, heated metal rod coming down on a person, the first wound that the person gets is a burn from the heat. Asi chavata, then after the burn from the heat, there is a wound from the blow. Umavatale lahavla. So then the wound from the blow, the black and blue mark, is second. And as we just learned in the Brisa, whatever is second is the one that lasts. So now we're going to say it's really shchin. So havale shchin is shchin. So then it's half a gris of shchin with half a gris of shchin. Umitztaref, and it combines. So again, they look the same. The shchin lesion, the mikvah lesion, they look the same. They have almost the same laws. The only difference is they don't combine with each other. Shchin lesion is a lesion after heat that wasn't from fire, and a mikvah lesion is a lesion after heat that was from fire. So now the question is, if a person had a shchin lesion and then he gets hit with a heated rod, how do we define that experience of being hit with a heated rod? Is being hit with a heated rod, namely, ultimately, a fire lesion, or is being hit with a heated rod ultimately a black and blue lesion? If it's a black and blue lesion, then the shkin and shkin are combining. But if it's a heat lesion, then shkin and mikvah do not combine. So Tashma coming here a proof from our sugya. Rabbi Zev Reichman is the name of Shmuel. Libein sakin shachat ba. If he heats up a knife and then he slaughters with the heated red hot knife, shchita so ksher, the shchita is kosher. Why? Because shchitu the kodum libuna. First there is the blade, and only afterwards is there a burn. Amachavata kadin. So therefore, if that's true about a knife, the same should be true with a metal rod. First there is the wound of the black and blue mark, and then there is the heat. So if the heat is second, the heat should overrule the wound, and then we should say that we have a situation of shkin with mikvah, and they can't combine with each other. So there's a big difference. Chidud shani, a blade slicing, is different than a blunt instrument creating a black and blue mark. When you have a blade, the blade is a very small and sharp part. So that small and sharp part doesn't have much heat, and that small and sharp part creates a wound, and then there's heat. But by then already the two parts of the pipe are separate from each other. The heat's not going to get to them. However, when you have a blunt instrument like a rod, so it's a big metal piece. So that big metal piece, maybe before it creates the black and blue mark, first it creates the heat, because it's all big heat, and then there's the black and blue mark. So if the black and blue mark is second, then you have a combination of mikvah with shkin with shkin. Okay, let's just finish the sugya. Tashma, finally, let's come here a proof. We're in a brisa. Libin shpud behikabo. If somebody heated up a rod and hit with it, nido mishum mikvas eish. It is considered ultimately a fire wound. So almost you see that when it's a rod, chavata kadin. When a rod hits someone, first there's the black and blue mark, but then there is the fire wound. So since the fire wound is second, that's the one that ultimately is what is here, and therefore the two would not combine. So that's a proof. So maybe not. Hasam nami. There also we can say maybe it's not talking about a regular being hit with the blunt side of the rod, but rather the barzei mivris, that he poked someone with the rod. The hainu chidud, which is like the blade of a knife. So since he poked the edge of the rod, that poking part, that doesn't have a lot of heat, so that's why it's first a wound, and then secondarily it is heat, and that's why it's ultimately defined as heat. But maybe when you come down with the with the other side of a rod, maybe there it's heat first and only the black and blue mark second. So ultimately, we do not resolve this question. Okay,
Rabbi,
question
but these are two different actions. One is checking,
right?
and the other one is injuring.
Okay.
But the same laws for both of them?
Well, we're trying to derive from one to the other. We're trying to draw a comparison.
I mean, I understand that, but I mean, is there any...
Gemara ultimately makes this distinction. There's a difference between the blade, the edge of a blade, versus the whole object. There's a difference between them.
More
Yeah,
surface
question.
area.
Yeah. Any heat. Yeah, but any heat, any wound of heat, once it heals, can become tsaras. One tsaras is shchin, the other tsaras is michva. Okay, now moving away from tsaras, we get into, at the two dots here, on the, right, moving away from tsaras, we get into the issues now of isurei hana'a. What is the law of a knife of avodah zara? Can you use it for shchita? Rav Nachman or Rabbi Avua, sakin shel avodas kochavim. Let's say a knife that is used to slaughter animals for avodah zara. What about using it for shchita? Said Rav Nachman, mutar l'shchatba. You're allowed to slaughter with it. However, asur lachtoch babasar. You can't use it at home to cut meat. Why? Mutar l'shchatba. You're allowed to slaughter with it. Mekalkahu. Because you're not allowed to get benefit from such a knife. But when you slaughter, you're not getting benefit. You're ruining it. When it was alive, you got food from it. Besides getting food from it, you can get children from it. It can do work. Now that it's killed, you can only eat it. However, but when you have a piece of meat, you can't use the knife of avodah zarah to cut it. Misakinu, because that's just a benefit of improving the meat, and you're not allowed to get benefit from items of avodah zarah. Amar Rava said, Pam shashochet asur b'misukenes. I can think of a situation where you can't even use it for shchita. Let's say the animal is in danger of dying, so you're not going to get benefit of working it. So now you're saving it. You're going to get something from it by slaughtering it. So then already the shchita is a benefit. The shchita is a benefit. You can't get it from a avodah zarah knife. And sometimes machatich mutter. Sometimes you would be allowed to use an avodah zarah knife to cut a piece of meat. But atmi to kaimel korbana. When you have big pieces that you're going to send them away, right? You have let's say the zrah l'chayim v'kevi. You're supposed to give away to the Kohanim, or if you have other big pieces that you should have given them away whole, and once you cut them, you're not going to be able to give them away, so then already you can't use them. Then already you could use them because using the knife is making it worse. It was a big piece. Now that you're cutting it up, it's not going to be such an honorable piece. It's not going to be such a nice steak. So you're making it worse. So making it worse is not getting the benefit, and therefore it's allowed with an item that you're not allowed to get benefit from. So now ask the Gemara, how could you use a knife of avodah zarah when you're ruining the meat, when you're making it less valuable, to take the mishum shamis surah? But I understand, this was a knife of avodah zarah. Knife of avodah zarah absorbed all sorts of tastes of animals of avodah zarah, so it absorbed non-kosher tastes. So now when you use this knife, let's say to slaughter an animal, so now the taste, the non-kosher taste is going to go from the knife into the sides of the animal, into the meat of the animal that's being cut with the knife. You see, even though normally absorption of taste is only when there's heat, a knife is different because a knife there's a lot of pressure. Duchta the sakina, and the pressure of the knife creates absorptions of tastes. So 1 second, you can't forget about the issues of Isra Hana. You are getting benefit, you're not getting benefit. You're using a non-kosher utensil, and the non-kosher utensil is giving non-kosher tastes into what it's being applied to. The Gemara says we're talking about the chadash, a brand new knife. It was never used on avodah zarah. The Gemara says 1 second. If it's a brand new knife, so then why is there a prohibition of getting benefit from it? Chadash, if it's a brand new knife, whether it's Rabbi Yishmael or Rabbi Akiva, who have an argument about when you make an idol, is just the making of the idol already enough to give it the status of avodah zarah? Is the hazmana, is the preparation milsa already something of meaning? That's true. That's true with avodah zara, but with a knife, which is mishamshi avodas kochavim, a knife is only something which serves avodah zara, or mishamshi avodas kochavim, that which serves avodah zara. In asur and ad sheyavdu, they certainly don't become prohibited until they're actually used. Gemara says, Ibayisem alternatively, I can tell you, the pasuk bagavs. Yeah, it was used for avodah zara, but it wasn't used for a carbon of avodah zara. For the animal, it was used for the wood of avodah zara. The knife was used to cut up twigs for avodah zara, so there was no taste absorbed. Ibayisem biyashana. Maybe it is an old avodah zara knife that was used to slaughter animals. So you say, 1 second, how can you use it for shchita? Now the taste of the avodah zara animals is going to go into this kosher animal that you're slaughtering. The answer is shalibna ba'ur. You get to the answer. Why are you going to heat a knife? He did liban on the knife to kosher it, to make it kosher lePesach, as Baruch tells us. Right? He took the knife that he had been using to slaughter animals for avodah zara, and then he makes it red hot to get rid of the taste. So he got rid of the taste, but it's still an avodah zara knife, so you still have the issues of Isser Hana. If you're slaughtering a healthy animal, so then there is no problem of Isser Hana, because that's not getting benefit, that's actually making it worse. So then there's no issue of Isser Hana, and there's no issue of absorbing or transmitting tastes that are not kosher.
So even if you burn the knife, put them on the fire, make it red hot, still is tameh to do shech with it?
No. We didn't say it's tameh. We said it still has the status of an
Right,
avodah zara
that's
knife.
what I mean by that.
So you
Yeah.
can't get benefit.
So
if
that
the
knife
shchita-
is no good at all anymore. Is that what you're saying?
No, we're saying you can't get benefit from it, but if you're killing a live animal, that's not getting a benefit. Because you've made it worse for yourself. When it was alive, you had more benefits than when it's dead. So to do shchita, you could do shchita. It's not called a benefit.
But you cannot cut the meat with it.
But you couldn't cut the meat, correct? That's a benefit. Unless you're cutting a big steak, so it would have been better off as a bigger steak, because then you can get more from it than if you cut it up into small pieces.
Anyhow, the knife they do shech with, they don't cut meat with it. It's a different knife.
All right, they could.
We live in a
They
society
could.
where
You know,
knives.
We're living in a wealthier society, that's for sure. That's for sure. No, thank you. Itmar, we learned hashochet b'sakin shel avodah zara. If some shel ovdei kochavim, sorry, person who uses a knife of non-Jews that has all sorts of forbidden tastes in it. Rav says if you use that for shchita, kolei, you just have to peel the area that was slaughtered because that area absorbs these forbidden tastes. And Rabbi Chanina said you have to do more. You don't even have to peel it. Madiach, you just have to wash it off. Maybe this is the question. Mar Savar, one holds, namely the first opinion. The second opinion, based on shchita tzonim, where you slaughter, that area, the area of the slaughtering is cold. And since it's cold, there's no need to peel off, there's no absorption. The other opinion is based on shchita roseach, that the area of the slaughtering is boiling hot. And since it's boiling hot, there is some absorption of taste. Everybody agrees. That where you slaughter, the area of the slaughtering is boiling hot. If the one who says all you need to do is to peel, so shop, we understand it because there's an absorption, so you have to peel off that which was absorbed. The one who said you only have to do is wash it off. I did the treaty Simani Lafuke Damlu Bali. Says even though it's hot, but since the pipes are busy releasing blood when they slaughter them, they don't have the capacity to absorb in tastes. They're so busy releasing, they're not taking anything in. Ikadami, another version is like this. Maybe everybody agrees that where you slaughter is cold. The one who says when you use a non-kosher knife, all you need to do is wash it off because of the fat that would be on the non-kosher knife. That makes a lot of sense because there's nothing absorbed. And the one who said you have to peel away the top layer, he's saying like this, even though it's cold, a knife, because there is a pressure when there is a knife, even though it's cold, there is an absorption. A knife, because it presses, has absorptions even though it's all cold. Sakin. Let's say you have a knife that was used to slaughter an animal that's a treifa, that's not kosher. So, how do you make the knife kosher? Chad Amar, one said bechamen, you have to drop it into a pot of boiling water, because he holds that the place of the slaughtering is, as we said, Beis Hashchita is roseach, it's boiling hot. So there's an absorption of taste through heat. You have to remove that taste through boiling water. Haram, the other opinion holds if Beis Hashchita is cold, so if you use a knife on a treifa, so the knife doesn't absorb anything hot, so you just clean it off bitzonin with cold water. The hilchos of the halach is, afilu bitzonin, you can use cold water. The i'ikav bisa the parsel michperei, and if you have an old, worn out piece of garment, you don't even need the cold water. You just scrub the knife with the rag, and that's enough to make it kosher. Ulaman da'amar l'chamin. So now the opinion that said that you need boiling water, my time of why? Mishum de Kabbalah isura. It's because the knife, when it slaughters the treifa, is absorbing tastes in a state of heat that are not kosher. 1 second, Tera Nami. So if that's the case, after every shkita, we should say that the knife should have to go into boiling water, because when you have a kosher animal, bala ever min achai, before the animal is dead, it's alive, and the knife is absorbing taste of ever min achai, of a living animal. You're not allowed to eat a living animal, so that's absorbing non-kosher tastes. So when it says no, emas bala, when does a knife absorb? The kichaima, when the beis hashchita, when the neck that's being slaughtered is hot. Emas kichaima, when is that neck hot? The kikamra shchita, at the end of the act of slaughtering. He shaitan, at that moment, the animal is not alive, the animal is dead, so it's not absorbing any tastes of Eiver min achai. Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda said a lesson in the name of Rav. Hatabach, a person who's slaughtering an animal and then cutting up the meat to sell it. Tzarech shlosha sakinim. He needs 3 knives. Achas shoshochitba. One that he uses for shchita. Why? Why can't he use a knife for shchita to also cut the meat? Because if the knife of shchita has a nick, then it doesn't do a good shchita, then it does ikur, it ruins the animal. We don't want him to use the knife of shchita after using it on the pipes on anything else. So echad, a second knife, shemachatich babasar, to cut up the meat. The echad, and a third knife, shemachatich ba halavim, to cut the forbidden fats. As if he uses the knife to cut the forbidden fats and also to cut the meat, some of the forbidden fats are going to mix in with the meat, going to be non-kosher. Ask the Gemara, the liskan lechad, why can't he just use one knife? Lichtuch babasar, first use it to cut the meat. V'hadir lichtuch b'chalavim. After you cut off the meat, then cut the forbidden fats. And at that point, you're not mixing that knife with the meat anymore. So the Gemara says it's a gzeira, it's a rabbinic decree. Shema yachtu chalavim yachar kach basar. Maybe he'll cut the fats, then there'll be some of this forbidden fat on the knife. And then cut the meat, some of the forbidden fat will get onto the meat. Ashtanami, so even now that you have multiple knives, maybe you'll mix up the knives and you'll end up using the knife for the fats on the meat, and the taste of the fats will get into the meat. That's the Gemara. Since the rabbis have insisted that he needs to have multiple knives, a separate knife for the meat and a separate knife for the fats, he's going to know not to mix them, and he's not going to mix them up, and he won't use the meat of the fats for the meat of the meat. Therefore, the taste of the fat is not going to get mixed up with the meat. Rabbi Chananya ben Akasha me'eretz HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'zachas Yisrael l'fi chakir and Torah mitzvah v'ne'emar v'nechvet zaman tzidko yagdil Torah v'yagdil.